Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. We are continuing our playthrough of Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, and we are in part 2 of Approach of Azathoth. This is a really cool scenario, and we're going to pick up exactly where we left it off, but we're not going to have any more rules explanations as we did throughout the first part. We will be talking about things specifically as they come up if I didn't mention them in the first part, so there might be a few new things here we'll run into that I'll explain as we go. But in terms of a rules overview, that is over and done with. We are now going to start really chugging along here. So without further ado, we should move into the action phase. But just before we do, we need to make one correction that I'm glad one of you spotted. And I wanted to see how many people would actually pick up on this, because it's actually quite funny. So I'm curious to know how many of you guys actually spotted something very, very sly and sneaky from my daughter in the last part of this playthrough. There was a time frame during the end of the playthrough where we were resolving 2 Mythos tokens that Serenity had pulled from the bag, one of which was the Gate Burst token, and we had gone ahead and put 1 Doom on all 3 of these locations. Noticing right now, the general store doesn't have a Doom. I wasn't there, and I never actually used any actions to go ahead and ward that away. So how did that disappear? Well, for those of you that had a really keen eye and was able to spot what happened, it was actually quite funny. And Glenn, I want to give you a big shout out for actually catching this in action, because it's kind of funny. Basically, there was a Doom token here at the general store. This is a clue token. That's a Doom token. And I had gone ahead and placed this clue one right about here while I was talking about what this means. As I was doing so, Serenity's hand just ever so slowly crept into the scene, and she kind of grabbed what looked to be just one of these tokens, but actually swept both of them off screen. It's actually really, really funny, and it was done so slowly that, you know, I'm actually kind of surprised more people didn't notice, but maybe you did and were too busy laughing to comment about it. But I left it in because it was hilarious, and I wanted to see if anybody else would spot it. So Glenn, congratulations to you for actually finding out that Serenity is in fact a cheater at such a young age. I mean, a year and a half, like, I guess, I don't know what to say. I don't know whether to be proud or not, but that was some sweet sleight of hand for sure. So to start off the action phase, I'm going to go ahead and activate Agnes. So what we want Agnes to do is we really need her to get down here to the Unvisited Isle, mainly because her allure ability and her will are much better and much more productive than Calvin's currently at this location. And actually this is a result of your guys' awesome feedback as well. We also have to remember though that Calvin was able to get a Remnant token, which is huge, and one of the tokens we need, but we need to get it back up to the Arkham Advertiser space in order to try to gain that particular clue. So we kind of need to do a little bit of a switch here in terms of where characters are located in order to gain some clues. But we also can't forget about the Doom that's literally just seconds away from turning Rivertown into an anomaly neighborhood, which would cause problems for us as well. We don't want that to happen, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of both. A little bit of mitigation against the Doom, as well as trying to hopefully get the correct items to the correct people and start those people on their way. So let's go ahead with Agnes. I'm going to actually have her go and move. So she's going to go 1, 2, because you can move up to 2 spaces with a single move action. She's now going to pay $1 from her $3 that she has in order to move an additional space. So she can do this 2 times at max. So I could go 2 more spaces if I paid another $1. So every space in addition to your move will cost $1. So I paid $1, I can go here. The max I could do again is just $2 to spend and 2 spaces. Just so there's clarity there. So I'm now at the Unvisited Isle, and I've only used 1 action. The next action I'm going to do is the trade action. So at this point now, I can freely trade between Agnes and Calvin. So Calvin is going to give Agnes his, well, actually, let me think about this. I could give Agnes that particular token, or I could have her, no, it's not bad. She will sit there and end up encountering this area at least once, which isn't bad, and it could result in her getting some good things here. There's another chance for another Remnant here, and she's really strong in lore and will, so, but in terms of who should be holding the Remnant, if Calvin goes off over this direction to the right off screen, heading towards the Doom, I don't want Calvin to be holding the Remnant. So I'm going to pass the Remnant over to Agnes. So Agnes now has the remnant, and her action is done, and she's in the unvisited isle. Okay, so we're on this side of the board now. We have 4 Doom tokens here in Rivertown. My main focus here with Calvin is to get over to the Black Cave, because Calvin has a very strong ability when he goes ahead and uses the ward action, and I'll show you how that works in a second. So the main reason I gave the remnant to Agnes is that she'll be heading north, well, basically northwest, back up to north side in order to try to get and use that remnant that Calvin gave her to get a clue. And if we can get a clue, we can then use a research action to put it on our codex card that we need in order to advance the story. So what we're going to do here, now that Calvin has dropped off the remnant item to Agnes as part of her trade action, which allows both characters to trade things freely. Now it is his turn. He has 2 actions. He's going to spend 1 action to move, so he can move up to 2 spaces. He's now in the Black Cave. Perfect. Didn't have to spend any extra money. There's also 2 Doom here, so when I go ahead and do a ward action for his second action, I'm going to be rolling his lore, and his lore is actually not as strong as Agnes. Agnes has a 4, and Calvin, oh, you only got a 3. So you'd think that wouldn't really be all that great, and the odds there, not so good, because you need to roll a success in order for every Doom token that you'd like to remove. So obviously 3 to 2, that's not really good odds, and of course only rolling 5s and 6s for successes, not even 50-50. So what's going to help him out? Well, he's got a Spirit Dagger, and this Spirit Dagger says you get +2 lore as part of a ward action. So if he does a ward action, he's going to have 5 dice, which is fantastic. So he's going to take 5 of these dice, and he's going to cross his finger that he can land 2 successes to remove those 2 Doom. In addition, if I do that, he actually gains a remnant. That's right. Do you guys remember that from the player action card here? I'll show you again just to remind you. But at the very bottom of the ward action, it says if you remove 2 or more, you gain a remnant. That's huge. So we would end up having 2 remnants, and that could be really useful later on. So it really comes down to this. So here's hoping that Calvin has what it takes in order to perform this ward action successfully. We got it. We actually got 3 successes. So that's awesome. So both of these Doom tokens are removed. We've now stabilized this area from having an anomaly, which is awesome. That's a huge win for us. And then on top of it, Calvin's going to go ahead and gain a remnant. So Calvin's got a remnant, so this token will be going next to his player board. So technically both of our characters now have a remnant. Awesome. Everything worked out there exactly like I hoped it would. Good thing it did, and the rolls worked for us. I'm going to put the dice back, and we're going to move along to the monster phase. So we're starting off the monster phase here, and it looks like Agnes is going to be the one to begin this, as she is the leader. So the servant is going to activate as it's in a readied state, so the black side's facing up, the one with the most art. And it says on this card that this individual is a hunter, which is not good. And hunter has some special keyword there, and also talks about how it will move against us. So it says it's going to move toward and engage the investigator with the most clues. So technically neither of our characters actually have any clues, so it'll still move. Because at this point it's just going to go to whoever's closest, and in that case it's going to be Agnes. So at this point in time we're now going to talk about how a monster engages you. So now we've grabbed the monster and it's going to be engaged with Agnes. So the dark side that we're showing here of this monster is going to be flipped to the other side. But just before we do so, I want to make mention this monster could have moved up to 2 spaces. It didn't need to because I was close by anyway, and it matched everything we needed for the AI to come after us. But just to note, this one could have moved up to 2. So on this side of the card, we've got more information, including the art of this monster. So we should probably go into detail about this. At the very, very bottom is the damage that it's going to do. And at this point in time, sadly, because it is now engaged with Agnes, that is exactly what's going to happen. Probably a good idea to go over this card because this is actually the first monster that we're actually engaged with throughout the entire gameplay thus far. So on the very far left of the card, where it shows a heart with a number 4, that is the health of this particular monster. In the middle would be the attack modifier. So this is going to show you that you're going to be using your strength for a strength skill check, and you'll lose 1 off of that roll. So if your strength is 2, it's -1, so you're rolling 1 die. Not so good. The next one to the right of it, which shows the eye symbol, which is for observation, is going to be what you use in order to try and evade this particular monster. You can see that this one is very tough to evade as it has a modifier of -2. So for Agnes, her observation is 2, and this would actually take those 2 away. But like many Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror games in the series, you can never roll less than a single die. So you will still, even if this reduces you to 0, still get to roll 1 die. At the very bottom of the card, it shows you the damage it will do to you. So 1 damage worth of health to you and 2 sanity damage. So that's what's actually going to be hitting Agnes right now. So during this engagement, because it is now engaged, it will do 1 health damage as well as 2 sanity damage. So that's kind of unfortunate. So these tokens, again, these ones are the ones I was telling you I'm going to proxy in. They're from Top Shelf Gamer. They're phenomenal. So there's 2 brains there to show you the sanity and then 1 actual heart. So those will sit next to Agnes's player board or card. And we're going to move on and just read a little bit about the bottom section of this card as well. It says, after you fail to evade this monster, you disengage other monsters, and both you and it move 1 space toward the unstable space. So literally this servant is dragging you towards the unstable space, which usually ends up meaning you're being pulled towards something that's likely going to be bad and involve more monsters, more potential for anomalies, and all kinds of other nasty things to be all over and around you. So that's pretty much it for the card. We've gone ahead and we've actually soaked up the damage from its engagement, so let's move on. So there are still 2 more enemies here and monsters that we need to activate. And this is going to be a little different, so I want to explain this so you guys understand this so that it's crystal clear. The unstable space does not get determined the same every single time. The biggest indicator of where the unstable space is if you have any discarded event cards, which are basically cards that are not inside of this tray, but have been discarded beside it, or I like to put them under it. Then whichever one is on the top of that pile, and we talked about this in the last video, whatever one's on the top that has the Doom icon that is next to the title or name of the place, that's the unstable space. And in the last video, Hibbs Roadhouse was the space that these rogue figures were heading towards. But then we had a gate burst, and what that gate burst did was we went ahead and we resolved it, but then it told us to shuffle the card that we used during the gate burst and the entire event discard pile and drop them back to the bottom of the event deck, meaning we don't have a discard pile anymore. So what do you do, and how do you know where your unstable space is if you have no discard pile to reference for a Doom icon? Well, if there is no discard pile for the event deck, you literally have them sent back to the starting space of the scenario. So that would be the train station, which is literally on the other side of the board on the north side, where our investigators need to go to solve that. Well, at least we could potentially go there and solve that mystery. So these guys are actually going to take a nice turn heading west. They're going to leave East Town and move into downtown. So we've got to activate each of these rogue figures. So this one right here is going to go ahead. It can move up to 2 spaces. It says that it's a patrol, so it's going to move toward the unstable space, which is why I just explained that. And it's going to, if you can get to an investigator, it'll engage the one that has the highest influence, but that's not going to happen. So the rogue figure is going to go from here to the streets, and then I can choose which of these 2 spaces to put it in. Whew, good question. I'm going to probably have this go up to Independence Square for this one. It's going to be the same situation with this particular rogue figure, 2 spaces, which means streets, and then I could either double it up in here, or I could drop it down here. I'm going to separate them. I'm going to have them go separate, because if I do have to deal with them, I don't want them both to show up in this, back to back. I think that would be a nasty surprise, but it really hinges on where I am in relation to where they are, and maybe an event deck card will come out that will force them to go elsewhere. I just hope they stop following me in general. So now we're going to move into the encounter phase, and this is where things get a little sad for Agnes. I was really excited because I thought Agnes would be able to go ahead and do an actual encounter here in the Unvisited Isle. But the game states that if you are engaged by a monster, you cannot do an encounter. That's right. So I'm going to have to deal with this particular servant card in a coming round in order to have Agnes even go ahead and do that particular encounter. And that's okay. I mean, it's not great. I was hoping to hopefully maybe get an extra remnant here. But remember, if we kill this thing, we get a remnant. So it's kind of not as bad as it sounds, but it is kind of sad that she doesn't get to do an encounter. It's just very, very different than Eldritch Horror and those types of games where you just are always gaining, encounters, unless of course you're lost in time and space. That's a whole other issue. Currently with her, she's not going to go ahead and get to do any encounter, but Calvin will. And Calvin's at the Black Cave, so let's do an encounter for Calvin. You trace your fingers along the pictographs on the cave wall. Check your lore. So we're going to do a skill check for lore using Calvin. His lore is 3. And he's not doing a ward action, so he does not get to use his spiritual dagger for +2. So he has to use just the 3 dice. Hope for the best. So here we go. Let's see how we go. I'm not going to read you the pass and fail because that's one of the other things with this game that's fantastic is if you're playing solo, do your best to read up until you see the skill check icon and stop. Do not read any further. If you're playing with other people, what's really fun to do is have someone else read you your encounter and then you go ahead and do the skill check because it keeps you from knowing what the pass and fail condition is, and it's more thematic, it's more edgy, and I shouldn't say edgy, but it's more exciting because you just don't know what's coming. So you don't know what's going to happen if you pass or fail, and I don't in this scenario. So let's find out what happens here. Okay, so I got a success, and as long as you get 1 success, you are successful. So let's go ahead and read this here. So for the Black Cave. If you pass, fragments of a secret history blossom like a garden in your brain. You gain 1 spell. Hey, that's not bad. So let's go ahead and find out what spell we're going to gain. So when you're going ahead and gaining a spell, it's simply grabbing the top card off of the spell deck. Now there is a mistake inside the print in the rules reference for the particular gaining of a spell. You'll notice that it says go ahead and gain an ally or take the top ally card. Don't do that. There's an ally deck, there's a spell deck. That is definitely a typo. You're grabbing a spell because that is what you've gained. So go ahead and grab your spell. You'll know that it looks like a spell because the back looks like this. So there's the top one off the deck. What did we get? We got ourselves Wither. Okay, so this one is, alright, so one-handed. Spell incantation. As part of an action, you may test your lore -1. That's not good for him because his lore is not that great. Add your test result to the test result of the attack action. And you take a sanity hit for just doing it. Not exactly the best for him, but something I could trade over to Agnes, and she would make much better use of that. So, hey, it's a free item, or it's a free thing in general. It's an incantation. It's not a bad thing. So now we're going to go ahead. We're going to drop this encounter card to the bottom of the Rivertown deck, and we're done the encounter phase and can move to the oh-so-fun Mythos phase. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to put my hand in the bag. Now this time I don't have Serenity actually helping me out here, which is kind of sad because it was actually really fun to have her. And she will definitely, I shouldn't say definitely, but I'm really going to try my hardest to get her back in on this one because it was really fun to find simple ways to get her into the gameplay, and she has fun doing it. So, and it also sounds like you guys really enjoy seeing her too, and I enjoy playing games with her. So the quicker I can get her into board games, the better. So here we go. First pull for Agnes is a blank. Look at that. So that's nice. So again, remember these tokens don't go back in the bag. They get removed out of the picture. So you basically just put them over to the side. So right now I've got a pile of 5 tokens basically sitting over there waiting. Once the Mythos cup is empty, you put all the tokens that you've pulled over the course of many rounds back into the game. Or into the bag, I should say, or cup. So here's the next one. Oh, we've seen that one before. So let's go ahead and resolve it. Kind of a bad time for Agnes to pull that, seeing as she's already engaged with a servant, and now we have to go ahead and spawn a monster. This is not good. Okay, so again, going from the bottom of the deck, never the top, because you always can see what monster's on top. We are pulling, an Occult Ritualist. Interesting. So this is a human cultist, and it says spawn at the nearest, spawn at street nearest leader. Well, the leader is Agnes, and I was pulling this for Agnes regardless. So it's going where it's going, which is the nearest street. So it's either here or here. I'll probably put it right here. It also says that it's considered elusive, and it is a lurker. Place 1 doom on any adjacent space. This character is elusive, so in other words, when it comes into play, if you move into its space and you actually don't attack it, you're not going to become engaged with it. And if it moves into your space, it's not going to engage you. So it's one of those things where this individual doesn't really want to be engaged. The only way you're going to be able to engage it in order to kill it is going to actually do the engaging yourself, which means you're going to have to try to attack it. Because if you don't engage it, every single time that monsters activate, instead of this guy moving, as you can see, there is a dash in this move area here of this icon. So no movement. It's literally just going to place one doom on any adjacent space. So I get to pick where the doom goes, but it's just going to be spewing doom around as it goes ahead, doing its occult ritualist thing, which is basically just trying to raise up an anomaly in a particular area and make life miserable for us. So we can let him kind of do his thing, let him or her do her thing or his thing, and not really worry about it. But over time, that could really come back to haunt us. But it is nice that we pulled a monster that isn't going to just attack Agnes out of the gate, especially when she has already an engaged monster on her tail. Okay, Calvin, so you saw how that went for Agnes. It wasn't exactly the greatest, but it wasn't the worst either. So kind of a mixed bag. Let's see what happens with Calvin here for his pulls. So he got a blank. Looks like we got the exact same setup as the other one. We're down to probably the last few in the Mythos Cup. Let's see. Oh, that's not going to be good. So this token basically is going to have us take the top card off the event deck, flip it over, and wherever the Doom icon is noted, that is the area that is going to gain a Doom token, sadly. And wouldn't you know it, Easttown is the card that's going to be discarded. So this card will be discarded in the end, but we're going to flip it over and reference it for where it's Doom. Oh my goodness, the Hibbs Roadhouse, of course. So it's being discarded. It's going to go down underneath the event deck, but we also have to now take a Doom token and place that up where the Hibbs Roadhouse is. So this is actually kind of funny because the Doom token goes to Hib Roadhouse and now basically becomes the unstable spot again. So this in a way is kind of good because the rogue figures, when they activate and are going towards the unstable space in future rounds, are going to head back towards where they were already coming from. So they're just a little lost. They're kind of bouncing around, but hey, that's good. It'll keep them away from us as we try to solve the clues in the story on the north side, which is on the far west side of the board, and hopefully down in the merchant district as well. Plus, we've really mitigated the Doom pretty good, except for the fact that Easttown's looking like it's going to be hurting pretty soon. Okay, so for this round, we're actually going to choose to have Calvin start off instead of Agnes. And you can do that either way. You can switch, who goes first at any point in time, which is really handy because in a situation like this where Agnes is in a little bit of trouble with a nasty servant who's engaged with her, we want to have Calvin come over and help because Calvin has a spirit dagger and a much stronger strength check against this monster and would be rolling 4 dice versus maybe 2 for Agnes. And that's taking into account the modification of -1 as well. So we really want him over there. Plus, he has the voice of the messenger, which allows him to suffer horror and re-roll dice. Like, he really might be able to do something pretty good. Now, the only thing is he's only able to make 1 attack, but maybe between an attack from her and an attack from him, we can clear this monster off of her before she takes more damage from it. Because 2 sanity and 1 health hit every single time this thing attacks is pretty vicious. So we're going to have Calvin activate for 2 movements. So 1 back to the streets and then 2 into the unvisited isle. He's now going to go ahead and engage the servant. Now the servant's already engaged with Agnes, but what ends up happening is you take the card from Agnes and it will now go in front of Calvin because Calvin is choosing to fight it. So now its focus has gone to Calvin. And at this point here, we'll just place it right here so you guys can see it. We have 4 health needed to take this thing down. We have to go ahead and do it. If we want to fight it, which I do, we have to go ahead and do a combat check or a strength check. And our strength skill check is a 3. But I do have the spirit dagger, which I'll definitely be using, giving me a +2 on my roll. So we're going to end up with 5 dice total, but then -1 for the negative modifier on the servant. So we're going in with 4 dice, meaning if I roll 4 successes, this thing could die in 1 hit. Crazier things have happened. It would be incredible if it did. Doubt it, but hey, you never know. I don't have any wood to knock on, so I probably already jinxed myself, but it's worth doing. So the other thing I have here, guys, is this Voice of the Messenger. It's one of our starting cards, and it says that you may suffer 1 horror to reroll any number of dice. So use this no more than once per roll. This allows you to reroll the dice rolled for your dark pack. So there's that as well. Now, And that's another thing, guys. The Dark Pact, you might be wondering, like, when does that trigger? How does that happen? Well, it happens when the Reckoning happens, which hasn't happened yet, but I can tell you it's coming. Don't want to talk about it. Anyway, so here we go with Calvin. Now, I do have the Wither spell with Calvin, and he technically is in the same space as Agnes. So I might do some, when Agnes activates, I might be able to do some trading there, take the spell, and then do an attack with Agnes. So that could be good. So we'll see how that pans out. But right now, my focus is on Calvin and finishing his activation. So here we go. 4 dice, hoping for the best, and I really hope I don't have to take any sanity damage for a reroll. Oh, that's a really good roll. Oh my gosh. Okay, so here we go. This is nuts. So that's an incredible roll, first off, for this. So we're going to be hitting it for 3 damage. Now, what's awesome about this is I can now use the voice of the messenger that allow me to take 1 horror to reroll any number of dice. So I'm going to risk it because I think 1 horror on him shouldn't be all that bad. I'm debating whether actually that's worth it or not. When Agnes goes to attack, Agnes is going to attack, and technically if she's attacking with what she currently has, which is not all that much, she would be rolling 2 strength. That's not really that great against 2 strength minus 1. She'd be rolling 1 die just to attack, which is not that great. It's almost worth it to have him go again. So I'm going to risk it. I really hope this pays off. This could actually come back to bite me, but hey, luck seems to be on our side, right? So let's risk this. So here we go. 1 sanity damage for Calvin. I might regret that. Here we go. So we're re-rolling the 2. Let's clear the rest of these dice over here. We're hoping for good things, guys. Cross your fingers. We might be able to kill this. Ah, no. Didn't pan out. Okay, so that's as much as I can use Voice of the Messenger. I don't have any clues, so I don't have any focus tokens to spend on re-rolling anything, so that's not going to work. So I'm done now. So that was too bad that didn't pan out. But hey, we got 3 damage on it, so there's a chance we could kill it. So let's go ahead and grab 3 damage so that we definitely don't want to forget that we've successfully hit him for 3. So this guy's got 3 on him now. And we're going to go for that 4th one. Now, Calvin's turn is done. So Agnes is next to activate, and I'm going to go ahead and do a trade action. I'm going to steal. Agnes is going to pickpocket Calvin for this Wither spell, which is awesome. So basically, as part of an attack action, you may test your lore -1 and add your test result to the test result of your attack action. So you have to do the attack action. You find out how much you're going to get success-wise there. Then you go ahead and do your lore check, and you add any successes to that. It just really boosts and enhances. But of course, there is a sanity hit that you will take for using Wither. And if you didn't notice that on the very, very bottom right-hand corner, I will take that sanity damage. However, Agnes has a special ability called Blood Casting that says you may suffer damage instead of horror while casting a spell. So if I want to balance things out, because I know that she uses horror a lot in order to cast her spells, I could take a damage instead. And it might not be a bad idea because her current spread of damage and sanity looks like this. She, remember, has 6 and 6. So it might be a good idea to take a damage versus a sanity, keep her closer, or at least a little bit more balanced in terms of what she's got for, the things that are hurting her. So we're going to go ahead and do an attack action. Her strength is a 2, but it's going to be -1 thanks to the wonderful modifier on this servant. And so now that she's actually engaging this monster, this card technically now is back in front of her again. So this is kind of where that like tug of war with the monster is happening. You're allowed to, basically engage any monster in your space, including ones that are engaged with other investigators. But again, you got to remember, when the monster turn comes around and they activate, if they're engaged with you, they're going to hit you. So there's that, right? So there's that kind of angle to it too. So I really need to succeed at this, which is why I grabbed that Wither spell. Hopefully that will push me over the edge, because otherwise I would not have engaged here, rolling 1 die. So we're going to go ahead and take 1 die to roll. We are going to roll this die. It probably won't be good, but then we're going to do our Wither and see if her lore can help us out. So first off, we'll roll. We might even get it right off the hop. We'll see how this pans out. But we have to do this as part of an attack action. So it does say, as part of an attack action, you may test your lore. So if we successfully do this, we don't have to do the Wither, but you can. So that's kind of cool. So here's hoping we don't even have to bother. Wow, look at that. It's amazing. So that is fantastic. So, wow. Really did not expect that. Okay, so this guy's gone. He is dead. And because we killed it, you can see there is a remnant token right up in the top right there. So, Agnes now has 2 remnant tokens, and Calvin has 1. So we have lots of these things. We need to start getting to some of these spots to progress the story. We're not doing bad, guys. So this monster is now discarded. Whew, that was actually really, really fun. Okay, so we succeeded there, which means nobody's engaged with us anymore, and we have a monster still on the board that doesn't want to engage with us. So we finally know that there's some calm, there's no more damage to be thrown out against us going into the monster phase, which is technically happening right now. Now we're going to go ahead and activate our monsters as part of the monster phase. So we got an Occult Ritualist. He doesn't move anywhere. He's got a dash for his movement, so he'll stay still. But it does say place 1 doom on any adjacent space. So, I mean, if I put it up here, I don't know if it makes much sense. I almost kind of want to put it down here so I can just ward it away sometime. And I likely will come down there anyway because I'm going to probably head south once I successfully do my thing in the north side and come down to the Merchant District. I'll likely be following the trail along south here because Rivertown still has 2 in it. So let's kind of put the doom in our own space. It sounds kind of crazy, but I'm doing this so that I can quickly ward it away rather than leaving it up here to accumulate. I'm trying to do as much mitigation as I possibly can I don't want to see anomalies unless they're forced upon me because I've already dealt with them before and they're not exactly the most fun. But I do want you guys to see them at some point, and so there will be a certain point, I'm sure, where I won't be able to stop it because the game doesn't, it's not that easy. It really isn't. So, okay, so out of the gates anyway, we're doing this decent at least so far. So we've gone ahead and activated the Occult Ritualist. Let's head over and talk to our robe figure. We're not going to talk to them. Let's find out where these 2 guys are going. We already know. We talked about this. They're heading towards Hib Roadhouse. You know what, guys? I'm going to put them back in the locations they were before, roughly. So our robed figures are going to head back. So 1, 2, I'll put this one at Velma's Diner. And this other robed figure I'll put down at the police station. And I'm just doing this again to keep them separate so that if I happen to engage one of them, I'm not getting kind of dogpiled at a particular location, so I'm going to have to go up there at some point. So that's it. So we didn't have any kind of engagements or nastiness happening on our end. We can actually go to the encounter phase. And look at that, we got some good news with the encounter phase because I can actually have an encounter with both characters. So we'll start off with Agnes. It's going to be the Merchant District. We're looking for one of those clues up top. Let's see if we get lucky. We did. We did get lucky. Okay, but where are we? We are in the Unvisited Isle. Here we go. The hut seems deserted except for a trinket on the table. You gain 1 Curo item. Now this is where the game is very different than what I remember from the other Eldritch and all the other different games that feature these types of mechanics. Typically when you gain cards like that, where you gain a particular keyword, you'd be searching through a deck to find it. In this one, you have essentially a shop or supply here that's already out, and you'll notice that the keyword Curo is actually on a number of these. This one here, the grotesque statue, is a magical Curo. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this one is a mystic scroll. This one's an elder sign amulet. And this one's a tattered cloak. Like, there's a whole bunch of them. So, first off, I could gain an elder sign amulet if I really wanted to. That would be incredible. It says down here, once per round, if 2 or more horror would be dealt to this card, prevent 1 of that horror. Like, that's incredible. And what's really cool about this is Agnes Baker would be the perfect person to have that amulet because, I mean, sanity is what she takes. That's what she does. She casts spells. That might be the most, or the smartest thing to do with her. This one here gives you +2 lore when casting a spell, so it just increases your dice rolling capability there, which makes you even stronger. The grotesque statue, after you perform a research action, you may suffer 1 horror to research 1 clue. That's nice. That's actually pretty good if you're trying to progress things faster, so that's not bad. Yeah, that's actually not too bad either. The bulletproof vest is, well, it's a bulletproof vest. It's going to block your damage. So once per round, if 2 or more damage are dealt, prevent 1. So very similar to Elder. We have basically the sanity and the health version of both those cards, which is pretty cool. And then over here, the most expensive item in the shop is the tattered cloak. And I can also gain this, or this. The only one I can't take is Bulletproof Vest because it doesn't have the keyword Kuro. This is a non-epic, it says non-epic monsters ignore you while activating and do not engage you unless you attack or damage them. That's crazy. Like, that's super tempting too, because the Elder Sign Amulet, even though it's great for sucking up sanity damage and things like that, the Tattered Cloak just basically lets you walk around and do whatever you need to do when you need to do it. And that actually could be extremely strategic. I think I want the Tattered Cloak. So I'm going to take the Tattered Cloak. So we're going to add this Tattered Cloak to Agnes. I'm pretty sure she's going to be quite happy to be wearing that. So we're going to put that over there on her. And now we're going to go back to our encounter. So our encounter continues on and says, a series of names and dates is scratched into the door. And we are supposed to check our lore now. So we're going to do a lore check, and this is going to be a 4 for Agnes, which is fantastic. And there's nothing else I can do to boost that. But 4 dice is pretty solid. So let's go ahead and see with 4 dice whether I can pass this. And again, remember, I put her in the Unvisited Isle because lore is a more commonly checked skill there. So it really does help me out. And as you can see, she nailed it. She succeeded easily. If you pass, you notice a correlation between the dates and events throughout Arkham's history. You gain 1 clue from your neighborhood. Yes! Awesome. So we get to gain a clue. Now then, remember, this doesn't go on to the codex just yet. It just goes into her possession. She's going to have to use a research action to actually move it to the codex. But hey, we are one step, well, I should say we're one step closer to progressing the story. So one very important thing I want to mention to you guys before we actually move on to Calvin's encounter is with Agnes's encounter, when she actually successfully did the encounter with the clue icon here. Remember, you don't take this card and toss it out of the gameplay or just throw it off the table. You want to make sure that you put this in the event card discard pile, which I put underneath the event deck. The reason for that is, remember, that is going to impact the unstable space. When you successfully, and only when you successfully do the clue encounter does it go there. If it's unsuccessful, remember, it gets shuffled back into the neighborhood it came out of in the first place. But you take the top 2 cards off the neighborhood deck, would take this card and shuffle them together, put them on top. Because until that clue token is removed from the neighborhood, there should be, in one of the 3 cards on the top of the deck, should be a clue encounter. Once it's solved, it then goes here. Make sure you remember that, otherwise things will get a little bit screwy and you'll be kind of playing outside of the game rules. Let's move on to Calvin's encounter. Next up for an encounter is Calvin, so we're going to go ahead and grab an encounter from the Merchant District. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. I got another clue card. That's awesome. Of course, I mean, it was supposed to happen eventually, but that's sweet that I got 2 back-to-back. That's ridiculous. Okay, so this is the Unvisited Isle we are currently in, although he's not good. And again, this says that it's going to be will and lore, typically, that's going to be checked for this, and those are 2 things he's not all that great at. Lore's pretty much a 3, and his will's 1, so that's not great. I guess lore 3 is not terrible. Okay, so you study the standing stones on the island, but you glance across the river. Arkham is gone. You gain 1 clue from your neighborhood. Oh, well, that was easy. Didn't even have to make a check. I just gained the clue. That's fantastic. Can't be that easy, though. Days and nights pass in eye blinks as you watch the city grow. Okay, so we're going to be doing a will check now. Oh, that's fantastic. So, of course, it's going to be his worst skill. So he only gets to roll 1 die for this. I don't have anything that will give me any boost. Nothing at all. The only thing I have is Voice of the Messenger. I can suffer a horror to re-roll it. So here we go. Come on, Calvin. Make it count. Oh, wow. Okay. That works. I'll take it. If you pass, you dig up something you watched buried years ago. You gained 1 Kuro item. Are you serious? No way. We get another item card? Oh, my goodness. This is ridiculous. Okay, let's head over to the shop area here. So as you guys can see here, I actually never went ahead and replenished this particular row, which I should have done. Another thing, guys, that I haven't been doing the entire playthrough is I just haven't been deactivating because I'm playing solo. It's not as necessary to really use the activation marker as much. I don't find I use it. I actually forget about it half the time because I never forget which character I'm using. I guess if I was using and playing multiple hands at once, it might be worth it, but it really isn't worth turning it over when you're only controlling 2 characters, or especially if you're only controlling 1. So basically, I forgot to replenish this actually when we took the item that Agnes gained from her encounter, but now we're going to be able to replenish this regardless, and we've got a leather coat, so it looks like another coat was waiting for us. But it has to be a Curo item in order to be picked up, so I've got a Curo Tome, a magical Curo, and a common Curo. So the new one that came out was a leather coat. I could take it. It says you gain 1 observation as part of an evade action, so that's good. Plus you get the you got some extra damage that you're able to soak up there, so that's not bad. Ah, the Elder Sign amulet looks too good to ignore, to be honest. It really, really does. It's tough to say what's better. You know what? I'm going to probably, just based on like the monsters and what they've been doing to me so far, especially the ones that came out of the deck and were messing with my sanity, I'm thinking the Elder Sign amulet's the one I want to go for still. And maybe I'll take it for Calvin, but I'll end up giving it to Agnes, which is going to turn her into an absolute machine. Or maybe I can have Agnes and Calvin swap items at some point, and he can take the tattered cloak and be the guy that's rushing in and behind the scenes and evading the monsters and whatnot, and she can be the one that's... Yeah, that makes the most sense. This is a really powerful card. It'd be silly of me not to take this. So I'm going to take Elder Sign. This is the one I'm gaining for Calvin, and of course we have to replenish this and the magnifying glass, something nice and cheap. Okay, so that's going to wrap it all up for the encounter phase. Remember, when you go ahead and solve a clue encounter, this has got to go to the event card discard pile. Do not forget that. So now, if we talk about the unstable space, it's going to be referring to the TikTok club. Oh my gosh, that's literally right here. It's just off screen. It's right there. Okay, so that's going to be an issue. So a lot of monsters are going to be heading that direction in the future. We're moving now to the Mythos phase. We're going to grab 2 tokens per individual investigator. So first one up is Agnes. Let's see what she gets. Do a little shuffle of the bag here. Reach in, and what do we got? Oh, the first time we've seen that one in this playthrough. Way to go, Agnes. So you pulled the Reckoning token. So this is going to affect typically the scenario card, items that, or basically any kind of conditions that the characters currently have. Headlines we haven't seen yet, but headlines can have reckoning effects as well. So we're going to just resolve all of them. Basically, it's like it's almost like the red trigger from Eldritch that just triggered all the nastiness on the board. It's usually the least fun. But it's good that it happened this late. We didn't have to worry about it. So here we go. Let's figure out what this is. So reckoning symbol right here is for each cultist monster, place 1 doom in its space. If it's in a street space, place the doom in an adjacent neighborhood space instead. So, cultist monster. We technically have 3 on the board. That is a major problem. The rogue figures are considered a human cultist, and this is Occult Ritualist is considered a human cultist. So we are going to be placing 3 Doom on the board. So the easy Doom token to put down is going to be one that's next to the Occult Ritualist. So I'm just going to actually place this Doom token right here because I'm going to have... It's even more worth it for me now to go after taking those because I can get a Remnant token out of it now. So I'm going to place it there. That deals with the Occult Ritualist. Let's go over to the Rogue figure and see what wonderful surprises have in store over there. Okay, so as part of this reckoning, we're going to go ahead now and place the Doom tokens for each of the spots where the human cultists sit. Remember, though, that the only reason I got to put a Doom token in a space beside the human cultist, which was the Occult Ritualist that we just did, was because that individual was in a street. These guys are in actual locations like the police station and Velma's Diner, so the Doom has to go in these locations. So we'll put 1 Doom here, and we'll put 1 Doom here. This instantly creates a problem for us because the second we do this, we then create an anomaly. What gets even more nasty about this is that if we happen to go into this area, we're going to start doing anomaly encounters in the future. The other thing that's also bad is that if any more Doom shows up in this location going forward, instead of it being dropped here, it's actually going to go straight to this bottom portion of the card, which says when there is 3 or more Doom on the scenario sheet, flip the card. We don't want that to happen. That is very, very bad. Can we stop it? I don't know. Things could escalate really quickly because that's how this game works. But basically how that would work is, say for instance we had to put 3 doom out for some strange reason in this area, we would put 1 out like we did, which would have given us 4. Another one would give us 5. As soon as you have 5 in a neighborhood, the anomaly lands. Or if you have 3 in one location, the anomaly lands. And once that anomaly is there, any more doom tokens that are added to that neighborhood for whatever reason do not go there, go to that card. That's kind of you got to remember that, because otherwise you're kind of cheating a little bit. Okay, so we put the 2 doom in there for the 2 rogue figures. We have now technically finished the reckoning here for this particular portion of the scenario card. So Azathoth is having a good laugh to himself, probably a good chuckle at our unfortunate situation. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about the reckoning effects, which happened to be on Calvin Wright. There was a time far, far back at the beginning of our playthrough where you guys all mentioned that I should take a dark pack. Well, this is where Azathoth has something to say about that. So this particular dark pack here says, Reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 1, your debt has come due, flip the card. This die roll is not a test. And you're supposed to not look at the back, of course. So we're going to do a roll here. We're going to cross our fingers it's not a 1. But remember, we can, as it says right here for Voice of the Messenger, which is a card we got because we took the dark pack, it does say, if I can get this to focus, use this no more than once per roll. This allows you to reroll the die roll for your dark pack. So I can reroll this once, but I'd have to take a horror to do so. So let's not have that happen. A 6. Perfect. Doesn't matter whether it was a 5, 6, 4, 3, 2, as long as it's not a 1, we're okay. So we did that, we've finished, the dark pack does not trigger. Good. This one right here says, until the end of time. This card cannot be discarded by any means, and Reckoning says right here, remove 1 damage and 1 horror from this card. So currently I don't have anything on this card, but technically this is a really, really cool ability that Calvin has. So basically the sanity damage that he already took is technically on this. I should have specified that when it happened, because there's his sanity damage as well as this particular card that he has. And he has this until end of time innate ability that allows him to take some extra health and some extra sanity. So it's here. What this is telling me to do is to remove 1 damage and 1 horror from the card, so I can take this and actually remove it. So there is actually a plus sometimes to these reckoning effects. This is a really good time to talk about this particular card, the Until the End of Time, because it's very different and it handles itself differently than most allies. It's considered an asset, even though it says it's a condition innate. The rules reference states that it's actually acts as an asset. So how this works essentially is Calvin is able to take additional sanity and health damage and actually assign them to this card. What's abnormal or different than an ally, if he had one, if he had an allied card like this and it had a 2 health, 2 sanity, the second he puts 2 health on this or 2 sanity, the card is discarded. It can take up to that much, but then it's gone. This Until the End of Time literally is an ability of his, and it is one of his starting abilities. He gets it forever, and it cannot be removed by any means, including damage and horror, and it even says so right there at the very top of the card. So the really cool thing about this is it allows him to continually manage his health and sanity. So it's almost like having an amazing ability out of the gate. Again, another reason why I grabbed the Elder Sign Amulet and plan to give it over to Agnes, because Calvin has that really powerful ability to kind of manage his sanity and health and actually remove it when Reckoning tokens are pulled, which is really cool. So hopefully that makes more sense. If we ever get an ally in play, you'll see what I mean by taking damage or sanity and having the card removed. Again, for those of you that are not familiar, it's not that it can take an ally, even though that's not here, cannot take 2 health and 2 sanity to be removed. It's either or. If either or hits their max, it's gone. This is a special card, very special, in that it will never be removed based on its damage or its sanity amounts on here. But again, you can only have a max of 2 health and 2 sanity assigned to it. Whew, I was wondering if we were going to get out of that. Okay, so we got through that Reckoning token. I don't want to see another one of those, but I think there might actually be another one in the bag. So I'm kind of not looking forward to this. Here we go. Oh, a clue. Hey, clues are good. Let's go ahead and resolve this token. Again, this is Agnes's second Mythos token. So we simply go to the event deck, take the top card, and we're going to shuffle this into the location that it specifies and add a clue token. So Rivertown is going to get a clue token. That's not bad because we're kind of wanting to head that direction anyway. So that actually works out really good. So I will go ahead and add a clue, actual clue like this, right into the center of Rivertown so that we know it's there. Plus, this card we just pulled is now going to be shuffled in with the top 2 cards of the Rivertown encounter deck. We'll shuffle them all around, we'll get them all set, and we'll move on to Calvin's Mythos pull. And as you can see, there we go. Clue tokens in Rivertown. We've already shuffled the Rivertown card from the event deck into the top 2, so there's 3 cards in a clump there. One of them is a clue card. Hopefully it's the top one. That's all we can really hope for. Let's go to the Mythos Cup and find out the 2 tokens that Calvin is going to get to round out the round. Hey, a brand new token that you just can't see. This right here is something you guys haven't seen yet, so let's talk about it. So when these tokens are pulled from the deck, they're very, very interesting because it's basically like you're pulling a headline of a newspaper, essentially. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to draw and read the top card of that headline deck. If you ever don't have any more headlines to read, you literally put a Doom token on the scenario card, which is not fun. So we do have headline deck. It's this guy right here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab the top card off of it and see what we get. So this one here says Rogue Comet approaches. Uh-oh, this is bad. And again, it always pertains itself unless it directs otherwise to the individual who pulled the token. So that's Calvin. The comet, never before detected by science, will pass within 1 million miles of Earth. Absolutely no danger, says MU Prof. Okay, and this is from Rex Murphy, the staff writer at Arkham, Mass. Headline, it's a rumor, so add this card to the codex and discard all other rumor headlines. So we don't have any more rumor headlines. This is the first time we're adding a rumor headline looking very similar to what you guys would expect from Eldritch Horror in terms of its looks there. And I mean that more so in the text, in the bold text of rumor. We're going to be adding this to our codex, which is where our anomaly codex and our deja vu codex are, which is under our scenario sheet. We also have a wonderful reckoning ability. It's going to trigger at some point. So if we get a reckoning thing again, it says any investigator may spend 1 clue to discard this card, otherwise place 1 doom on this card. That's not good. When there are 3 doom on the card, resolve a gate burst mythos effect, then, oh, that's bad. So yes, a rogue comet that's going to cause a gate burst. So we do have 2 clues. We could spend 1 to burn this card away. Obviously, that's slowing down our investigation and progress. That's what rumors do. They are just bad. They're there to basically chew away at your accomplishments. So that's fun, right? So we resolve that token, and we're going to move on to the next one. So Calvin's got 1 more to go here. Let's see. What do we get? Another spread doom token. Now this is something, guys, I want to correct because I might have actually stated this incorrectly when I pulled this a couple times earlier in the last round, and even maybe in this round. I don't think this round, but last round. I might have stated that you just go to the event deck and grab the top card off the event deck and look for the Doom, or look for the title with the Doom icon. What I meant to say was you grab the furthest back, or the last card from the event deck. So you literally take this tray like this, and you go to the very back of it, and you pull the back card out. Like so, because otherwise you would know exactly which neighborhood it's going to show up in and stuff like this, and could kind of prepare, I guess, or have a little bit of hidden knowledge there. But this way you know nothing. So Easttown is where this is going to go, but where is it going to land? It's going to land in Hibbs Roadhouse. Oh, so that's no good. So Hibbs Roadhouse is going to have... Oh, that's not fun at all. Okay, so... Yep, that's going to be... Oh, okay, and that's actually going to cause the first Doom token to drop into the Deja Vu card. Oh, no. So as you can see here, we have 2... Well, actually, we already have 5 Doom tokens on this particular location, and the Anomaly. The Anomaly is what's important if you want to add any Doom to a tile with an Anomaly already. The Doom does not go there, but instead gets put on the Deja Vu card, so we're going to have to go ahead and do that now. So that's a tad unfortunate. So the first Doom is going on the card. If there's 3 or more Doom here, we're going to go ahead and flip this card. We probably don't want that to happen, and now we really need to make a serious effort to get over to that particular side of town, which is considered the East Town, and try to deal with this anomaly, get rid of some of that Doom, because if that continues to mount, we are going to have a little bit of a problem and things are going to escalate very, very quickly. And that's going to do it, guys. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate all the feedback and really want to hear from you. What do you think we should do next? At this point, our characters both have some really good, we have some decent items that we've picked up recently. We're very successful that way. We got the Elder Sign Amulet. We got ourselves a Tattered Cloak. Both of them are expensive and very powerful. We both have a clue. We need 3 clues to progress the story. We need to use research actions from each of our characters to actually put them on the scenario card. But we still need 1 more clue to progress that story. So where do we get it from? The north side, downtown, or Rivertown? Rivertown off-screen has 2 Doom over here. This one has 1, and north side has none. So we can probably ignore the north side for now. It's really between downtown and Rivertown. Rivertown probably the better option because it has more Doom we can kind of deal with as we go along. And then, of course, we have the nasty East Town, which is a complete and utter mess. And when I say mess, I really mean mess. Like, this thing now has an anomaly we have to deal with. We also have a whole bunch of Doom there. And every single time a Doom token gets dropped there, it's going to be going on to the Deja Vu card. Once that gets 3 Doom, it flips over. Who knows what's going to happen? We also have this rogue comet approaching. And when the Reckoning Mythos Cup reveals a token for Reckoning, then we are going to be able to, if we want to or have it, spend a clue to get rid of that. So that's another question for you guys. Should I keep a clue at the ready for that Reckoning token to get rid of this rumor, or do I risk not having the clue and focusing more on the story and then having that trigger a gate burst? We know what gate bursts can do. They're not the greatest. It's happened before. We've dealt with it, but it's not exactly the greatest, and it really can mess things up quite quickly. So some pretty tough choices there. But I'm gonna leave it up to you guys. I want to know, what do you think? What's your creative thoughts? What do you think we should do for this coming round? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you noticed anything that I messed up, missed, or anything like that, let me know in the comments below. If it's major enough and it's something I can actually change going to the next playthrough, I'll absolutely do it. If it's something that is too far gone at this point I cannot, then I'll do my best to adjust. But again, I'm not trying to game the system. Literally am playing this with all the rules in my brain. So it is possible I could have missed something as I went through this, but I know you guys are very diligent at catching things, and that's fantastic, so that we can make sure that anyone learning from this, make sure they understand it fully. So thank you guys so much for your support. See you in the next episode, and as always, keep on rolling solo.